Hey, fantastic people. Welcome to Metro Exodus 2.0. The reason why this video is called 2.0, if you didn't watch the original, which is now deleted. It was kind of a bummer video. I was super tired when I did it. I was in a bad place mentally. I had shit bothering me. And usually I keep things like that up so like I remember and not forget. But I feel like seeing the 2.0 in this video will help me remember. And even though I'm not super wide awake today, I figured I might possibly be able to do a better job. Usually I don't delete videos because I don't like to backtrack and stuff like that. But it was eating at me, and instead of doing a new game, we are doing Metro again. Also, this picture is gonna look a little washed out because once YouTube compresses everything, and with darker games, like the compression, in my opinion, shows way worse. I lightened up the picture because there's some parts of this video where I felt like you couldn't see. So I had a lot of points of contention with the video. So how have you all been? Feel free to add on the comments. So to make a more positive video, we don't really go for positivity here, but to uplift, you see I'm already tired and I'm fucking up my speech. To uplift your spirits, we will be covering a game that are about survivors in a post-apocalyptic in a post-apocalyptic world where people live in the metro. This is Metro Exodus, so we will actually be leaving the metro. You, however, will not be seeing a lot of that. I did, however, stream some of the open world parts of this game in our earlier video. Feel free to look it up. So I'm probably barely going to cover this game, knowing how my commentary goes, but basically, this is the third game in the Metro series. If you have not played the Metro 2033 and Metro Last Light, I highly recommend it. I haven't finished this game, but based on my initial impressions and finishing the first two games, I think the first two games are better. I especially like Last Light. I actually finished 2033 on the Xbox 360, which was a console exclusive. It was on PC, but they didn't have 2033 for PlayStation 3. And that game was clunky, and I still loved it enough to finish it. And then when they came out with Redux on the PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and then PC, but I played the PlayStation 4 one. They redid it where it ran at 60 frames per second. They still couldn't do all the special effects like the PC version did. I never played the PC version. I'm not even sure if I have a good enough PC to play it at max settings now, but yeah, that was an amazing experience. And I beat Metro 2033 two times, once on the 360, once on the PlayStation 4, and I did play the PlayStation 3 and I believe the Xbox 360 version of Last Light. I know for sure I did play the PlayStation 3 version, and those were competent games. They ran a lot better than 2033, but the Redux made everything so much better, and it was at a higher resolution as well. Those were more linear affairs. So I feel like the developers could design the levels a little bit better. Like, this is a game where you scavenge and stuff like that, and everything was just really planned out. Like, and you also had like your triggered events, like where you'd see like certain things or activate certain cutscenes and stuff like that, and it was just more planned out and linear. This game has stuff like that, but the way this game runs is you kind of ride like a train, and then you go to like a fairly large open world map. Like, this isn't an open world game, it's almost like just going to a gigantic level, and you don't have that linear feel. So you can get lost and lose ammunition fairly easily, and that's something I'm still getting used to. I'm really trying to hit my back catalog really hard. I want to like start freeing up some hard drive space, and B, actually want to play the games I own. Maybe the next generation will be the last physical generation, and then I'll be set. Because as much as we don't want to admit it, it seems pretty clear, even if people don't get good internet at some point. I feel like, especially the way streaming with movies and stuff like that is taking off, I just feel like once they like get to the point where the technology has no input lag, and you can like run it fairly decently, like with like a low like with low like internet rates or whatever. Sorry, words are escaping me right now. I promise I'm not stupid. I just play a stupid person on YouTube. But anyway, yeah, I just feel like that's the future. And yeah, it'll be a more affordable things, and I'm sure PCs will still exist, but just like with movies and people not really collecting physical discs as much anymore, where like you go to the store and their video selection's almost non-existent now. Like most of the time, like if I want something, I have to order it off of Amazon, which I absolutely hate doing because I like the adventure of going out. Maybe not so much now with the virus still going around. And yeah, that's still a thing, even though it doesn't seem to be talked about as much. I feel like, unfortunately, it probably will in the near future. I said I was going to make a more positive video, right? But I just feel like with everybody being close together and things like opening up, which they inevitably have to, or otherwise the economy will pretty much collapse. I just feel like it's going to come up, and I just hope that the months that we spent in isolation did not go to waste. But anyway, we went from physical media to that. Like, so I have a pretty hefty PlayStation 4 collection. I showed you it. It's embarrassing, and yet I'm somehow proud of it at the same time. Weird how that is. So I've been trying to hit my back catalog. So I usually have this rule where I take one game out at a time, and that's it. And then once I'm done with that game, I put it back. But as insane as the world is right now, I'm like, fuck my rules. So I have like a stack of games. So to let you know what the stack of games are: Assassin's Creed Odyssey. I believe I put Mortal Kombat 11 back. I have not downloaded the Afterlife expansion. I feel like $40 is way too expensive for like 3 characters and a bonus story. That's like $20 less than what the game was when it was brand new. That's ridiculous to me. I'm sure they'll have a sale at some point. I was really hoping they'd come out with like an Ultimate Edition like they did with Mortal Kombat XL that had everything in it on disc, but there's so much shit in that game, like I don't even know if they could fit it on the disc. And the more stuff they add to the game, like the file is getting large. Like you might have to put it on 2 Blu-rays at this point. I'm not sure if it's reached like the 100 gig mark yet, but I know it's up there. But yeah, so Assassin's Creed Odyssey, Doom Eternal, Man-Eater, which is an awesome game I'll probably cover in the future. It's like an RPG where you play as a shark, and that's just a fun game. I've spent so much time on it. So Man-Eater, and then I'm really right now I'm working hardcore on Mafia 3 because I saw that they came out with a trilogy, and then it made me think like, oh, I never finished Mafia 3, and then it's like, since I have like the DLC with the disc installed on my hard drive, I'm like, that's taking up a lot of space, so maybe I should work my way through that. That might be everything that I think that's all of them. So right now I'm mostly playing Mafia 3. Oh, and then Metro Exodus. That's another game that I want to play from scratch because there's so many things you have to keep up with that isn't really muscle memory. It's not like a regular first person shooter where you just have to remember to reload. Like, there's a bunch of little things like wiping your mask off, repairing your mask. You have like a little like hand charger, like it kind of works like the little emergency charger. Sometimes you like, I have one in my car where like you this one uses like a handle, and it basically spins like a little motor and creates momentum to create a charge. I don't know what kind of thing you would call that offhand, but I have one in my car where you actually like turn a crank and it creates a charge. So you have that, and then you have like the little lighter. You also have a flashlight. You also have the little timer on your arm, as you can see, like it's very prominent. It also has a Geiger counter on it. I believe that's what you call it, where it measures the radiation. You have to remember how to change filters. You have to make sure your gun's clean. There's some guns in this game that are pneumatic, so you have to know how to crank them. I believe you just push the reload button a bunch of times. But there's a bunch of little things in this game that I need to remember. And then when you go to the open world, you actually have a map, and it's not like a super like intricate GPS map like most open world-ish games. I say ish because, like I said, like you have large maps, but they're not like a huge giant open world. You just have a bunch of large maps that almost work as levels with multiple objectives, some required with the story, and then some are optional, which kind of takes away from the funneled in storytelling. One of the best things about the Metro games, in my opinion, are the interactions with the non-playable characters and seeing how they live everyday life. There is some of that, but I feel like it's missing somewhat in this game, or you don't see it as often, and it's easier to get lost. Like, the beginning of this game is really good. It really pumps you up. There's part of me though that feels like, and maybe it's because I'm used to playing like most of the first person shooter games, I think, besides like that are popular, like maybe beside Far Cry, but I don't know, that even felt smoother. Like, I just don't feel like the frame rate feels really smooth in this game, and I never put that into question, especially during last generation. But there's just so many games now that run at 60 frames per second. I guess I can understand how like a PC gamer like goes to console and thinks something's like unresponsive or whatever, because they're running games at like over 100 frames per second sometimes. Which one, like back in the day, like I used to know these people, and I'd go over their house and like we'd play like LAN games on PC, like mostly the original Half-Life, which you don't think as like a huge multiplayer game, but yeah, they like, there were so many mods and like user made maps, but they would play it like at over 100 frames per second, and it just moves so fast. Like, to me, even though Doom Eternal's like 60 frames per second, like that game like moves so fast. Like, I have to be in the right mood, otherwise it's like super disorienting. That's another game I'm trying to finish. That's one of the hardest, or one of the most difficult first person shooters I think I think the other Doom games are way easier, and I'm only playing on like the normal difficulty. But at the same time, like, even though I get frustrated, I keep on coming back because it's like a really good game. And you seem to get better after you like process all your frustration. You're like, hey, I'm better at switching weapons now. Hey, I'm better at this strategy or whatever. I don't know. It's a game that I feel like you do better when you step away from it from a while. It's not like Call of Duty where it almost wants to tell its story. And there's some challenge to Call of Duty, and there's especially a challenge in Call of Duty when you play it on higher difficulties. But on the normal difficulties, like, I never have any doubt whether I can beat the game. Or Doom Eternal, I'm constantly questioning myself, and I don't want to like pussy out and like put it on like the easiest difficulty possible. But I'm scared that that might be a thing, especially with the fucking Marauders, which are these newer enemies, and they're fucking insane. I can't imagine what I know it's gonna throw multiple at me. But earlier in the game, there was like an enemy that I felt like that with. Maybe not to the extent of the Marauders, but then I was like destroying them like with ease later in the game. So you slowly get better. But anyway, with this game, it kind of feels clunky and unresponsive a little bit, and I think that's just because I've been spoiled playing games with faster frame rates, and I didn't realize it until like you go back. Because now that I think about it, like, I finished Metro 2033, and that frame rate was definitely below like 30 frames per second, and it wasn't the most precise game. And when you're trying to conserve ammunition and stuff like that, it can be incredibly difficult if your controls aren't that responsive. I believe, for the most part, this game runs at 30 frames per second. I watched the Digital Foundry video, and they're mostly running at 30 frames per second. This is an absolutely gorgeous game. I feel like it's pushing the PlayStation 4 console to its limits. This is actually the PlayStation 4 version, but I lowered the resolution to 1080p, so I actually could record. I have no way of recording 4K. This also has pretty decent HDR. It's definitely not going to look as good as the PC version on the highest settings, which I've seen. It looks absolutely gorgeous. Maybe with PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X, we'll get Metro Exodus Redux. Who knows? That's another thing. Yesterday, the PlayStation 5 was revealed, even though it's technically not as powerful as the Xbox Series X. Like, the games are just more interesting to me. Even like the kitty games, like, I was so stoked to see Ratchet and Clank and stuff like that. The design's really cool. It looks like it's made to stand upright though. So I'm not used to having my consoles like upright like a PC. So that would be interesting. But then I saw somebody show a picture of it horizontally with a stand. So I don't know. I know a lot of people don't like the design, but I think it's gorgeous. It looks like a modern piece of art with black and white, and then the neon blue accents, and the controller is really cool. Some games I question why they're on the PlayStation 5, because they look like they could be done on current gen, like the Little Big Planet game. There was some dinosaur like text adventure game. I'm like, why is this, unless they're not actually showing the gameplay, I'm like, why is this a PlayStation 4? Or why are you showing this off for the games that are coming out on PlayStation 5? But there's like a lot of subtle things like that they can do with as fast as the hard drive is, so maybe that'll make up for it. Maybe it just processes a lot of data really fast, and that makes up for like the higher specs of the Xbox Series X that has like better specs. I don't know. I just know that when they showed off the games. And I know a lot of the games on both shows aren't exclusive, but I know Spider-Man's going to be exclusive. The Spider-Man's Miles Morales. I know Horizon Zero Dawn 2, which even if I didn't like the first game, which is another game I want to go back and replay, like, that game is just so fucking gorgeous. That just seems like a game that you would want in your library to say, this is why I own a PlayStation 5, because that's probably the most gorgeous game beside the Hellblade 2 trailer that I saw. But I'm not even sure if that was, like, gameplay or not. Like, I'm pretty... Just because of some of, like, the way things were, like, rendered and stuff like that, I'm pretty sure, like, Horizon Zero Dawn 2 is running... Was, like, the demo that they showed was actually running, like, in the engine, and the game will look that awesome. And then there was, like... Returnal, that looked kind of cool. It kind of reminded me of Control, another game I need to finish, which I really enjoyed, made by Remedy. Remedy always makes really weird games. They didn't make the Returnal game, or the Returnal game, sorry. And then they showed Resident Evil 8, which I know that's going to be coming out on everything, but it looked kind of cool, but at the same time, I was really liking the remakes and it going back to its roots with, like, the zombie enemies and stuff like that. This almost looks like some sort of, like, folklore based, like, horror game where it's not necessarily, like, biological. Almost looks like cults, and like it kind of reminded me of, like, a werewolf movie or something. I'm sure there's more to it. Like, the characters looked really amazing. I really liked the gothic architecture and stuff like that. But after playing Resident Evil, and it might be nostalgia at play, the Resident Evil 2 and Resident Evil 3 remake, like, it's kind of bummed. And then I heard the next remake's gonna be Resident Evil 4. I'm like, why are you not making Resident Evil Code Veronica first? That's, like, the last one that, like, had zombies in it. And honestly, that's really, like, the true sequel to Resident Evil 2. Like, to me, that would have been the natural one to remake. And they could have done it way better. They could have fixed all the acting and the annoying characters that people didn't like, and really make it something in the areas, like, really cool and so different. And I know Resident Evil 4 is like that too, but I don't know, like, once you start getting into Resident Evil 4 and 4, like, the enemies are just, I don't know, they're less interesting to me. Like, I'm still interested in it, and I'm not saying Resident Evil 4 is a bad game, but once it went to Resident Evil 4, it started feeling like a different series to me. And even though, like, they upgraded everything, like Resident Evil 2 remake and 3 remake really, like, felt like the Resident Evil games that I was waiting for, even though, like, they're retreading on similar story elements. Speaking of which, I did finish the Final Fantasy VII Remake. That was absolutely amazing. It did have an ending. If you're worried that it's going to feel like a Walking Dead, like, episode where you didn't pay for all the episodes and it leaves you off, like, unsatisfied on a cliffhanger and you feel obligated to buy, like, the other 4 episodes, it doesn't feel that way. It feels like the Empire Strikes Back with less of a cliffhanger ending. And I think the remake's kind of a misnomer, because first of all, the gameplay is completely different. Second of all, like, pretty much everybody in the game has a voice. Minor characters, like, have you have more interaction with minor characters where you actually care about them. They're more developed and stuff like that. And the story is not the same. It's like an alternate universe almost. Like, it doesn't come out and say it, but but it's not what you think, and it's awesome, and I can't wait till the next one comes out, because it's like going on new adventures that are kind of familiar with your friends that you missed for a long time. Like, that was a Final Fantasy VII, though maybe not the best Final Fantasy, is one of my favorite, along with other people's favorites, because it's one of I think it's a lot of people's first next gen RPG experience in the 32-bit era, and like, I don't think the original holds up as well. The story's still interesting and stuff like that, but some of the backgrounds look like they were haphazardly made in Photoshop, and I'm not knocking the game. Like, I actually, playing the remake made me want to go back and play the original, but like, I don't think there's gonna be spoilers. Like, in this game, it's like you kind of remember parts from the original, but they don't always happen exactly the same way. And then, I don't want to spoil it, but going forward, like, I'm unsure how this series is going story-wise, or how it's gonna end, who lives, who dies, if anybody dies, if everybody dies. I don't know anymore. Like, all those things are like now being put on the table as a question, and it's awesome because it makes it fresh, and it's really exciting. It's such a well-made game, and if I subtract bathroom time and the times that like I left the game on pause, I at least got like 35 hours out of it, and I didn't even finish all the side quests. I did do a handful of them, but like, it was a 2 Blu-ray game, so like, it was a full-fledged game, and I'm absolutely happy about it, and I'm ecstatic about seeing where that series goes. That's a contender for one of my favorite games that I've played this year. Last of Us 2 comes out next week. I'm curious how that'll go. Like, I'm really excited about it. I know people are hurt by the spoilers, and I totally get why you wouldn't want to play it. But at the same time, I'm like, if the gameplay is good, like, even that'll outweigh the story. Because there's games that have like shitty gameplay that have great stories that just aren't worth trudging through the gameplay to get to that story. And I don't think people would have finished the first Last of Us if it was a terrible game gameplay wise. So I'm excited to play it. And then Ghost of Tsushima. Is it Tsushima? I don't know. That comes out the next month, and then Cyberpunk is probably the last current gen game I'm looking forward to. Although I have a Xbox One X, and some of the Xbox Series X games I heard are going to be able to be played on the Xbox One. So, and the Xbox One X will just make them look a little bit better. They're obviously not going to look as good as the Series X game, but hopefully I'll be able to play like the newest Halo, which I heard that's coming out on the Xbox One, and I'm keeping my fingers crossed I'll be able to play some form of Hellblade 2. Are they nice enough to release it on other systems like they did with the original Hellblade? But I don't think the Microsoft acquisition was in full force when they decided to release them. But anyway, this is a really cool game. I hope you're all doing well. I hope this video was entertaining. Stay safe, stay happy, sane, yada yada yada. Thanks for watching. Bye.
If you want to, like, comment, and subscribe. Thanks for watching.